Hi again, and welcome back to U.S. History with Mr. Snyder. And today we're going to be talking about the 1980s and the growth of conservatism. Your learning targets for today, we're going to talk about the differences between liberals and conservatives, very basic differences. We'll analyze the reasons behind the rise of conservatism in the early 1980s, and we'll talk about Reagan's victory in the presidential election of 1980. So taking a look at this chart, this is a basic viewpoint chart between liberals and conservatives and how they feel about the role of government in the economy and foreign policy. Let's talk about liberals first. Liberals are to the left. If you ever hear somebody say a person lies to the left, that means on the political spectrum that they are to the left of center. And liberals most oftentimes are Democrats, and so you can kind of put the two together in your mind. They favor more government involvement in the economy, whereas conservatives favor less government involvement in the economy. So they're basically opposites. The Democrats and liberals want more government involvement to lessen extreme economic inequalities. They do this through different social programs like welfare, like Obamacare, which often leads to higher taxes. And also they do this through government regulation of industry to make everything more fair, more equal is what they're trying to do. Liberals usually tend to stick up for the little guy, whereas conservatives say that more government involvement will lead to decreased economic growth, so we need to limit our government. Liberals want big government, conservatives want smaller government in order to stimulate economic growth. And we do this by reducing taxes and decreasing regulation of industry. However, it also was a line of successive Republican presidents who got us into the Great Depression as well, so there's that to be said. As far as foreign policy goes, liberals would like to work with other countries to combat communism, whereas conservatives would like to rely on our own national defense and fight. We're the first, we're the leaders. We need to follow what we think is best, regardless of what our allies think. And liberals would work with our allies and to combat communism in other countries. So that's a quick look at the differences between liberals and conservatives. So conservatives are criticizing the liberal policies of the 1960s and 70s because they say it leaves an enormous amount of waste and inflation. Their goal is to reduce taxes and limit government regulation of industry to promote economic growth. And we'll talk about how that happens next time specifically, but people gave it the nickname Reaganomics. Reaganomics. All right, there's different types of conservatives. Neoconservatives are traditionalists. Think of them as they feel the danger to society is taking up these counterculture values of sex, drugs, and rock and roll and abandoning traditional values. And then also anti-communism makes up a big part of conservatism, and it focuses on the dangers posed by détente and how we kind of played to the Soviet Union and kind of gave in to them a little bit. And it's against SALT II, or the treaty that reduced our arms, which was never passed, but they are against basically kowtowing to the Soviet Union and letting them have whatever they want. And so we call all of these groups together the New Right, because people to the right are considered conservative, and most likely conservatives are Republicans. So this New Right is the name for this. All these different groups are trying to advance a new political agenda that criticized liberal policies of the 60s and 70s. Reasons for conservatism, you can see the Democratic Party unraveling because of the race riots of the 1960s and the destruction of the Great Society program. The Vietnam War also divides Democrats. The counterculture is alienating people in the middle part of the country. It's mostly on the coasts, and it's also alienating white conservative Christians from the South who have mostly voted Democrat since the Civil War. But now these civil rights policies are getting these white conservative Christian Southerners to change their mind, and that's a part of Richard Nixon's Southern strategy to get them to vote Republican. And for the most part, that all the states in the South now vote Republican. The new right basically says three things are wrong with these economic liberal policies, and that's that they tax citizens too heavily. They're responsible for the stagflation, or the rising prices and rising stagnation, which is lack of growth in the economy, and also for something called an unfunded mandate, which is a program that is required for states to follow through. So the federal government is requiring the states to do something, but they aren't providing a way to pay for it. And so that may not seem fair, it may not seem constitutional, but more and more of these are getting passed as our budget deficit rises. And so another reason for conservatism is this religious participation going up during the late 70s and 1980s. And a lot of these people get into politics, such as the Moral Majority, which is founded by Jerry Falwell. And his goal is to use politics to work toward religious goals. And his organization becomes a powerhouse in getting Southerners who weren't registered to vote and people in the Midwest who weren't registered to vote Republican. And so his organization, the Moral Majority, condemns abortion and the Roe versus Wade decision, the Equal Rights Amendment, or that would destroy the traditional American family, and homosexuality they're also against. They also oppose the Engel versus Vitale decision of the early 60s, which forbade religious teaching in school. So that's another reason for this rise of conservatism. And finally, in the 1980 presidential election, you have the incumbent Jimmy Carter, and Ronald Reagan is the Republican who overwhelmingly gets the nomination from the Republicans. And basically everything in this election is working against Jimmy Carter. I believe Reagan wins 44 states in this election. Jimmy Carter cannot keep inflation down. His economic policies are not working. The Iranian hostage crisis goes on, and the election day is actually held on the year anniversary of the hostages being taken. And then we have the Soviets doing whatever they want, invading Afghanistan in late that year. And it's a big mess for Jimmy Carter. Ronald Reagan, on the other hand, criticizes the big government and the high taxes and being soft on communism. So basically all the things conservatives want, he is the ultra-conservative president. He's a former governor of California, and he's a former actor. He acted in a lot of B movies or low-budget movies. Today it would be the equivalent of a straight-to-DVD movie. His big role is in Newt Rockne about Notre Dame football. And so he has that connection to northern Indiana. But other than that, Reagan wins overwhelmingly, and we will discuss his policies next time. Continue to fill out your learning targets, rewind for any problems that you may have had, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.